If you're one of the people who think that every Jackie Chan film looks and feels exactly the same, I hope to convince you otherwise with this week's review. Hi, my name's Drew and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. This week I am talking about the film New Police Story, which came out in 2004. If I'm not mistaken, it's a Hong Kong action film. It is actually one in a series of many films. I myself have only seen 3 of them, so I can't comment on the series as a whole, the Police Story series, although they don't actually, as far as I understand, are so interconnected, they're just more thematically similar. People usually know Jackie Chan for his action comedies, stunts of course, but mainly the comedy, so they're not usually serious films and it's rather light-hearted. You do have heart in the films and you do have a lot of action, but typically it's more of a comedy thing. If you are interested, I would say, if I had to pick one, I would say probably that Rush Hour, the first one, is my favourite Jackie Chan film. Probably. So what makes this film different? It is, I feel, compared to what I just said, not an action comedy that Jackie Chan is typically known for. I would describe it more as an action drama. Because while there are, of course, funny elements in the film, I don't believe Jackie Chan would ever make a film that did not have at least some form of comedy in it. It is not a main focus, and it is used more to just break up the tension and not make the film quite so dramatic, I would call it. And there is, of course, a lot of action going on as well. What is it about? We follow Jackie Chan as a police inspector who tragically loses a whole squad of comrades during a raid, I'll call it. And this is what makes this film so significantly different. This film starts off, we see a drunk Jackie Chan, which has happened before in films, but in this case we are looking at someone who is really spiraling downwards on the road of really self-destruction. So he has not been able to cope with this loss, especially because he was the one responsible for the loss of these policemen. And it is something I haven't seen before or since with him in a film. That's why I really like it. Also because it shows that he is also great as a dramatic actor. It's not just the funny stuff. Essentially, the story, you see how he loses his comrades and he is suspended from police duty, meets this other policeman called Frank, and they together try to find the gang that killed all his comrades. That is the very short gist of it. And so you watch the two as they are doing their investigation and how they get along with it, and obviously you have confrontations with the gang as well. The gang itself, just to round it off, is a gang of youngsters, a group of youngsters. They're typically rich kids, so they come from rich families, and they are fueled by, I'll call it, boredom, and at the same time their leader is fueled by an intense hatred of the police. So the acting is very significant, as this story compared to others focuses a lot more on drama. It is also important that the actors are delivering a good job, which they do here. There are only very few scenes where I believe it's taken a bit too far, where it's just a bit too, I don't know, you have this sort of hit and miss thing I feel sometimes in Asian films where it feels like a bit more too ideologized, you know, it's just a bit too much on the nose sort of thing. But generally speaking, the actors here do a great job. So you have Jackie Chan, as I mentioned, he plays the main role, of course, of the police inspector. He is accompanied by, I already mentioned, a policeman called Frank. He is played by Nicholas Tse. Please forgive me if I am butchering the name. The other two standout characters I would name, or actors at least, would be Charlie Yeung. She plays Jackie Chan's girlfriend in this situation. She is actually important because she loses her brother in that incident that this film is really about, because he was also a policeman. So Jackie Chan lost his brother-in-law to that incident as well, not just a group of comrades, but a relation too. And the one other person I would name is Daniel Wu. He plays the leader of the gang that is the aggressor here, and he does a really great job as well. So just to pick on each of them individually as well, Jackie Chan, like I say, he deals with all this loss and drunkenness and all these things, and in the middle he finds hope again, he finds his emotions, he has trouble just dealing with the situation, talking about it. And I really love watching this because you don't typically see this very often from Jackie Chan. Great job here. His partner, played by Nicholas Tse, he's a really rather strange guy, I'll call it. I'm sure also in the police force he wears this oversized coat, and he's got a lot of humour to his character, and also in situations. There's some slight slapstick involved with his character, and just his choice of words make him a highly entertaining partner, actually. It's a nice contrast to Jackie Chan's character, who is obviously very down most of the time. I feel that the two of them, they work very well together, make a great pair. Like I said, the only female character I feel stands out is Jackie Chan's girlfriend, and she obviously deals with the loss of her own brother, but also the rejection, because due to the incident, Jackie's character, he is distant, he's not really communicating with her. You have a scene, for instance, where he finally does come to her door and they try and share a dinner together. It does not work out because he just can't handle the whole thing. And you see her just at a loss herself at how she can help him sort of recover while dealing with her own loss, of course. So, like I say, as you can tell, this is not really typical Jackie Chan standard fare, I'll call it. Finally, you've got Daniel Wu, as I already mentioned. He is the villain of the story, I'll call it. He and his group of friends. And I think that they tread the line here very well. It could have been easy to make it look silly or something, but you can really feel his motivation when it's shown to you why he's doing all these things. Himself not being treated very well in his family, particularly by his father. And so that's how his character comes about. This is a very understandable position. It shows just how important it is that we don't just neglect youngsters. It's very, very important. You really shape their lives. It's a story that is also involved here in this film. But he's great. He's not just one note. You can see all sorts of emotions. There's a real broadband of emotions that he displays here. He also suffers loss and hope, and all sorts of things are going on with him during the story. And he's also very menacing because, especially during that scene where the inspector loses all his comrades, that in particular is a very, very difficult scene to watch, I feel, at times, because it's just so menacing to the inspector. Action-wise, of course, there is a lot of action involved here. It is a police story with a gang that runs around robbing banks, etc. So you have a lot of action here, and as is typical, and even the Jackie Chan stunt team is involved in this film, it's obviously all very visually appealing. You have some really great stunts here. One in particular, a longer sequence where they're riding on a bus. I read up this seems to be a homage to one of the first films in the police story series, where apparently something similar happens, and it is just amazing. I mean, I am a fan of Jackie Chan also because of his stunts, of course. I love where in the credits you see how he performs all these stunts and how they do them and the injuries they go through. I mean, it's really incredible. And even just watching the film, there's so many scenes where you just wonder how they did it and what it must feel like to be a stunt actor in that scene. They're running down buildings. I'm not describing that incorrectly. They are running down buildings. You've got, like I say, you've got a bus scene. You've got all sorts of really daring dives, jumps, what have you. Really, really great. I'll also mention in the action, because it's also something that is, while very obvious, I still want to state, that is the fights themselves. Obviously, Jackie Chan himself and the whole stunt team are very great martial artists, and I feel you can really tell when you see martial artists on screen. Right now I am watching the Netflix series, or former YouTube series, Cobra Kai, and you can really tell the difference between having actors who are not proficient in martial arts to when you have actual martial artists on tape. Now, I have nothing against actors portraying martial artists on screen. That's what they're there for. And obviously you can't expect them to just acquire all these fighting skills, etc. in a matter of weeks or even months. It takes, as I know myself, it takes years and sometimes decades to build up that proficiency. But it just makes it the more enjoyable when you have a film like this, where you see martial artists on screen and you can really feel the punches. I mean, yes, of course, it's not realistic because they would be sore all over if any of these kicks, and they do connect, and you know, if it were realistic the way they're hits, they couldn't fight for as long as they do, but at least the motions themselves are absolutely on point and just great to watch. Directing wise, I was very surprised upon rewatching this film, just like last week's Wasabi, which you can click a link up here to see if you haven't seen my review on that. Again, this is a film that I haven't seen in probably over a decade, so it was interesting to revisit it. And through this new lens of reviewing and just knowing more about film, it was very interesting to see that the directing work, the camera work, is actually very good in this film. I was very surprised by it. You have some really interesting shots that to me feel very unique. They're also really paying attention to how they want, particularly the action filmed, of course. But I was very pleasantly surprised by that. Another interesting thing was the music. And the music, it was kind of hit or miss. At times it was very interesting. You had this sort of, I'll call it nearly sort of mythological, operatic music intertwined in the film. And at times it worked rather well. Sometimes it felt a bit out of place. And yeah, so the music I feel could be improved in this film. It didn't feel like it was fitting for every single scene, but at least they were trying various things, and I definitely applaud that. Don't worry if I made this film sound too dramatic. There is a lot of comedy in here. I can't picture a Jackie Chan film entirely without comedy, and it is used very well here. Typically in the fight scenes you have many fun elements, but also apart from that. So they pay particular attention to just make the tension a bit lighter at times through the tool of comedy, but generally you should not forget, at least in the first half to 3/4 of the film, that this is rather a dramatic film. The end is obviously a big action third act, where there isn't that much drama involved, but still, the comedy is used very well to break up this dramatic tension. So overall, like I say, I hope that if you feel that every Jackie Chan film is standard fare and pretty much interchangeable, I do hope that you would have a look at New Police Story and try it out, see if you like it. Let me know in the comments down below anyway if that was the case, if you have different feelings about it, or if you have recommendations for Jackie Chan films. I mean, obviously there are a huge load of them. And I know I haven't seen all of them, especially not the newest one. It's been a while since I've seen a new one. But still, let me know, especially if you've got a favourite one. I would like to know about that in the comments. I'll thank you for watching. Leave a like on the video and share it around if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for future review videos. And I hope to see you in the next one on Flying Wiener. Take care. Bye.